Hey there. I'm happy to have Erin Brown here. Erin is a frequency and clarity coach and has different platforms, different locations that she can be found as Consciously Erin. And I found her because she talks about the Schumann resonance, or that's one of the things she talks about. So I just figured it would be a fun time to learn about that and have a conversation. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and before we hit record, we had a nice conversation, but it was like, okay, we should just hit record. So
Right.
but yeah, to be a fellow spiritual healer, someone who hangs out in these realms, it's always nice to like connect and then also talk business stuff too, because that's the less glamorous aspect of doing this work. But
Right. It is the dirt under the fingernails. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So I guess however you want to begin, because like I'm curious how you got into the learning about the Schumann resonance, but I'm also curious about your spiritual journey that woke you up because you said before we hit record how you were very science based and like logic driven
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
your former self. So
Well, let me tell you a story here. Pull up a chair, friends. So in my professional life, in my previous life, I was a nurse for 25 years. I worked in the field of ophthalmology. I helped people see, right? I did
yeah.
a lot of, assisted in a lot of surgeries. I prescribed a lot of eyeglasses, that sort of thing. When I hit burnout with that, which happens with almost every nurse I've ever met in my whole life,
Mm-hmm.
I transitioned from being on the floor to being in the educational realm, and I started to work at a medical school. I was working in the simulation department, which means I was helping to design and execute very high technologically driven simulations for medical students of all varieties. So that means I would construct a scene for them, hire actors, train the actors, put the student in the position, do the evaluations. It was full time, lots of work, but tons and tons of fun. At the same time, I was having as I started working at the university, I started having some physical health issues that couldn't really figure out. There were a couple different things that went on. And then, uh, to make a long story short, I had a bunch of blood clots that happened all at once in my body. And that is not usual. That doesn't happen normally. So I had went through a lot of testing and was told that I had this very serious disease called antiphospholipid syndrome. This disease basically means that the red blood cells in your body have been stripped of a protein and become sticky, so you clot. This is a life threatening disorder. It will kill you if it's not managed. And so I started taking medication every day. Then COVID hit, right? So, as someone in the field I was in, that's not easy to do remotely. We didn't have a clue how to do this. So, whole university gets sent home. And one day I'm sitting in my house and I'm thinking to myself, man, I wish I had something to do. And it occurred to me, as a member of this university, I actually have access to a really, really good library. Why don't I research my disease? Duh, never thought about that before. So I start getting in the library and researching, and I started to notice that there was this one particular test that was brought up over and over and over in the literature. In order to be diagnosed with APS, you must meet X criteria. This test was part of that criteria. And I knew, because I'm a nurse and I keep track of my medical records, I knew I had not had that test. So I go back, take all this information, like the little nerd that I am, printed it all out, took it back to my specialist, and I said, hey, see this? I think that maybe we missed something. Can we do this test? And that specialist looked at me and said, I'm the expert. You listen to me.
Mm.
I know what I'm talking about. And if you don't take this medicine, you're going to die. If you get COVID, it's going to kill you. And he pumped me full of fear and sent me out of that office.
Oh,
Right. Now, as someone who works at a medical school, that was a huge no no for me because we told all of our students, you don't ever treat your patients that way. Your patients, you work for your patient. You should always listen to them. You should be a part of your care plan. So that was a red flag. And I decided I don't like that answer.
mhm.
So I went back to my primary care doctor, who's a really great doctor, and told him my concerns. And he said, you're right. Let's look through your records together. And we spent about 30 minutes looking for my test results that were not there. So then he said, you know what? I'm sure you have this, but just to make us both feel better, I'm going to go ahead and order the test and it'll just confirm everything. It'll be fine. Great. Go take the test. I got a phone call at 6 o'clock the next morning from my doctor. And he said, I need you to immediately discontinue your medication, and I need you to come to my office right now because you do not have this disease. And you've been taking a medication for 2 years every single day that we have no idea how it's going to affect your body when you don't need it.
Oh my.
In that moment, at the end of that conversation, quite literally, my entire worldview fell apart because until then, I had come to believe that science had all the answers. Science was always right. I was not open to any other explanation. And now I just found out that science had lied to me and it completely destroyed my worldview. Um, I got all the physical stuff taken care of, but for I'd say a good week, I was in this daze. I walked around and couldn't have conversations with people. My mind felt broken.
Hmm.
And one day I was sitting in my room and my daughter came in and to check on me. And she said, have you ever tried meditation? And my first reaction was, that's ridiculous. I'm not trying that. That's made up bull crap. I'm not doing that. And she said, you know what? Why don't you just try it? Because the other stuff isn't working.
Right.
Fine. So, in order for me to meditate, I literally had to go into my walk in closet, which is inside my bathroom, right? So, it's like a connected closet. I went in the bathroom, turned off the lights, and shut the door. Then I went in the closet, turned off the lights, shut the door. Then I put on a blindfold because my mind was so crazy that I could not sit still. I turned on a guided meditation, and I don't remember what meditation it was. I don't remember who was doing the talking, but as soon as it started, it's like everything exploded. I started seeing images, full color images in front of me, like I was watching a TV screen. The sound in my ears was modulating itself. It was so strange. It's like one side was really loud, then one side was really quiet, then they changed sides, and then I was hearing all these tones. My physical body got so hot that I was profusely just pouring sweat.
Wow.
This lasted for, I don't know exactly how long because to me it felt like forever, but it could have been 10 minutes. But that instant changed everything. I
Yeah.
started consuming material on metaphysics and spirituality and stuff like I had never seen it before. I just couldn't get enough of it. And a kicker here that I think is really fun is in my undergraduate studies. My undergraduate degree is in psychology. And in my undergraduate studies for my capstone project, I had to write a paper on what they called a fringe religion, right? I chose to write a paper on this woman named Doreen Virtue. And for
Oh.
people who are relatively new to this field, they may not know who she is. But if you've been in this field for a while,
Hmm.
you absolutely know who she is.
Yeah.
In my undergraduate paper, I literally tore her apart. I used psychology to rip everything she said to shreds. And here I was 20 some odd years later reading her books and learning from her. It was a very full circle moment and a realization of how I had completely blocked myself from all of this just because I took this to be the only truth there was.
And that's interesting because by that point she had denounced all her work.
Right. It was
Not
really
that that
interesting. And I
mattered.
didn't know that. I didn't know
Yes.
that. When I had my awakening in 2020, I had no idea that she had switched back. I had no idea
Right.
that she had kind of
Became
left
like
the
an
field.
evangelical Christian or whatever.
Right.
Jesus
Right. Like,
thumper. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and then, you fast forward a couple years and I would say probably a year and a half later, I was having lunch with a friend of mine who was a meteorology student. And I was kind of talking about how I had noticed that I feel weird on some days and not other days. And I was just out loud sort of saying, this is so weird. And he goes, the earth itself has a resonance to it. Did you know that? And I go, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, we watch it, meteorology, and we pay attention to this called the Schumann resonance. And there have been studies that have said that this may be correlated to brain function in humans, the alpha theta range. And
Mhm.
these are where meditation lives. He goes, maybe you should look into that. And until he said that, never heard of it. So I was like, oh, okay. So I left that lunch and I started looking it up. And I found an app that you could check it every day. And because I'm a scientist, I said, well, let me research this, right? So every single day for a whole year, 365 days, I kept track of how I felt versus what I saw on the graph. Then I took all that data and I went back to the university where I worked and I plugged it into like a statistical analyzer AI thing that everybody at the university used for research. And I just asked, is there a correlation? Is there something to this? And sure enough, it spit out, absolutely, there's a correlation. And it told me on these days, you feel this way. On these days, you feel this day. And I thought, wow, isn't that interesting? So in science, the next step is peer review.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's not exactly somewhere that's going to accept a paper written by someone with only one participant in the study, first
Of
of all.
course. Yeah.
So that's not going to happen. So I thought, well, what's the next best thing I could do? Well, why don't I just put it out to the public? Well, the general public has no idea what I'm talking about. They're going to just go right past what I have to say. Where am I going to find an audience for this? So then I thought, well, maybe TikTok, because TikTok is full of a global audience. And I feel like I see a lot of people on there talking about spiritual stuff. Fine. So I just started making my videos every day with the intention of seeing if there was a correlation
Mm-hmm.
in society and not just with me.
Right.
And it has literally turned into this community that is thriving and growing. And I have so many people. I get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments every single day through all the platforms that I share on, of people talking about how they feel either exactly the same way or very similar. I have noticed a pattern where there's a group of people that feel exactly the
I
opposite
was
of
going to
me,
say that, or the extreme opposite, like people who
or
are
the extreme
angry
opposite,
or they're
which is
exhausted. Yeah.
right, which is really, really exciting as a scientist, because that's another factor. Okay, great. So now I'm excited to start looking into what makes them feel it differently. Is it where they are in their journey? Is it where they are in their environment? Is it where they are in their mental state? What is it that changes that for them? Because there's too many of them that
Mm-hmm.
feel opposite at me, and they all feel it at the same time. So again, there's something there. I just don't know what it is yet, but it's very exciting to me when people say this. And as a teacher, one of the greatest things that you can ever do for a teacher is to surpass your teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I mean by surpassing the teacher is when the student says, thank you so much for giving me this information. I want to learn more. And so you start doing your own research. I really encourage everybody. You can find the Schumann resonance on any number of sites. It is not a secret. You can find it. If you Google it, you will. Um, Start keeping track of how you feel. Keep track of how you feel on those days and what the energy chart looks for. Look for your own pattern and use that
Mm-hmm.
pattern to help yourself go through your days. The part of the reason also that I put it out there is not so that I can plant a seed in your mind, but it's kind of like telling you, hey, there's construction up ahead. So maybe plan a
Yeah.
little extra time this morning in your day, you know?
Well, like with the solar flares, some of us are more sensitive to feeling them almost instantly, and then the rest of the world might feel them a week later or a few days later, right? Isn't that
Right.
the case? So like I had a friend point that out to me, I guess like between 10 and 15 years ago. She was bringing that to my attention, and I was like, oh, okay. I didn't really like look into it, but I believed her. And then over the last few years, I think my own physical sensitivity has increased. So
Yes.
I know when this happens before,
Yes.
and then I'm like, I gotta check, and then I, try to find different people that for
Yes.
that information, because you're like, something's fucked up. Like I
Right.
know,
Absolutely.
or the dog is
Absolutely.
acting weird,
Yes.
animal behavior is different. But I think there's
Absolutely.
the loudest thing that I noticed, or it was very, very obvious that something happened, and it was like the very beginning of June. It was like I think it was like either like June 2nd or something like that. But like I woke up in the middle of the night, like I had just fallen asleep, and usually I'm a sound sleeper, and I like woke up with a jolt like 40 minutes later, and I could feel that like anxiety, heart rate, the busy leg feeling where I almost feel like I want to kick my legs a bunch, and just restlessness and a wakefulness. And I was like, this has got to be. And I even said it to my husband, who, like I said, he's not like on board with believing in these things, but I was like, there's got to be, and I said, I recognize how this feels now. Like I know that this is, it's not even like I
Yeah.
wonder, it's just I know. and
Yeah.
then and then it was like major spikes, and it stayed that way through till now, basically, like on and off. It's been very intense since the beginning of June.
It has been very intense. Yeah. So I actually hear it
Oh
physically.
really?
I hear it. The pitch in my ears changes.
Okay.
If we're getting big white energy, the tone in my ears goes really high. If it's red energy, the tone
Mhm.
in my ears drops down low. And the tone is always there, it's very consistent,
Right.
but I hear it go up or down. And I don't know if, I'm going on what I feel, but I almost feel like I'm hearing the actual frequency of the earth as it modulates itself for the
Hmm.
incoming energy. I don't know for sure, but that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we talk about ears ringing and stuff like that as a thing, but
yeah.
that's interesting that you could even like identify the pitch and to kind of science
And that works when I'm
correlation.
communicating with guides as well.
Hmm.
So if a guide, if so, when I look at someone's energy, when I'm working with someone, I don't see faces. I'm not a medium. I don't see people. I see what looks like little balls of energy. And those balls vibrate on different planes, right? And I can tell by the pitch in my ear connected to the little ball of energy I'm seeing if that is an earthbound guide, if that is an ascended guide, if that is an angelic guide, because the pitch gets higher, higher, higher,
Right.
right? And at first, I had no idea what that was. And it was only through trial and error of asking questions and getting answers that I actually figured that out. But yeah. So it's everywhere. Everything is energy. Absolutely everything is energy. And once we understand that, it unlocks your perspective on a lot of things that are happening around you that maybe you can't find an explanation for. I
Hmm.
tell people all the time, manifestation is not magic. It is resonance. That's all it is. It's a reflection of your vibration. It's like a tuning fork. If you have two tuning forks next to each other that are the same frequency, if
Hmm.
you hit one, the other one will resonate. If
Yeah.
they have different frequencies, the other one will not resonate. So you have to allow yourself to sit in the vibration of how you feel when when this thing you want comes forward. It's about how you feel, not what you say. Always 100%.
That's so cool. And that's kind of like how healing works as well. It's just the
Yes.
matching of the vibration.
Yeah.
So
I
cool.
want to tell people, I want to go back a little bit. I think I got
Sure.
off track. I want to go back a little bit and just tell people what the Schumann resonance is and what I'm looking at, because I think that's helpful for a lot
For
of
sure.
people. So the Schumann resonance is not the name of the energy, it's just the name of the measurement, right? And this is a set of extremely low frequency electromagnetic waves that naturally occur between the Earth's surface and our ionosphere. And if you think of when you ring a bell, how it vibrates out,
Hmm.
when we receive energy, it comes in and vibrates out. And that's what we are seeing on this graph. The main resonance of the Earth historically has been 7.83 hertz,
Hmm.
although we have harmonics that are higher and lower than that. We resonate
Right.
at multiple. That 7.83 hertz is also changing. It is rising very, very slowly, but it is rising and staying at that sustained higher frequency for longer. That's been what's been happening lately. These frequencies that we are measuring are produced by lightning strikes. They're produced by CMEs. They're produced by all kinds of things.
And
The
CME's
thing,
coronal mass ejection, like the
yeah,
bubbles of
coronal
earth
mass
that come off the
ejections from
sun.
the sun. And what's important to remember is people are always, they'll jump in my DMs and they're like, oh, there was a thunderstorm. That's what this is. And I'm like, yes, maybe. Does it matter? It is all energy. The delivery system is inconsequential. It's the energy itself. Source is energy. It's delivering energy through whatever means it has most access to at that moment,
And
right?
when,
So don't
when
get caught up
there's
in that.
when there's these spikes that happen or the coronal mass ejections that happen, I explain it to people from how I understand it, which is just like as the sun has its, then the earth kind of calibrates, like their energy kind of calibrates.
Yes.
Kind of like how I'm
They resonate.
interpreting
They
it.
resonate. Yes.
So it's just, oh shit, oh yeah, the earthquakes and volcanoes also happen, and then the what do you call it, the aurora borealis changes. So like when I
Yes.
mentioned that to my husband, when I felt it the night before, and then like a couple days later there was volcanoes and stuff, I was like, I told you.
Right.
This is
And
a
that brings
thing.
up a really, really interesting point that I literally was just talking about today with someone. Um, my understanding. So when you think about nature, when the habitat evolves, the habitant must also evolve or it goes
Hmm.
extinct.
Right.
We are reflecting in us. This spiritual growth to me is a reflection of the evolution of our actual planet. If you look at our planet, the current in the Mediterranean has reversed course for the first time ever. They don't know why, and they don't know what's going to happen because of this. Today, July 9th, is the shortest day in
Yeah.
Earth's history. because
I
the
saw that.
rotation has changed.
Mm-hmm.
We've had more volcanic eruptions, more earthquakes. We're getting hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean, for crying out loud. Our earth is quite literally evolving with all this energy it's receiving.
Mm-hmm.
As Earth's inhabitants, we must also evolve. And
Mm-hmm.
so all of these things are happening, these awakenings. People are feeling like they're having contact experiences with non human intelligences. Our AI is jumping through the roof. All of these things are part of evolution. And when you can step back and look at the bigger picture, you can clearly see that evolution is happening not only in the planet, but in us as human beings to match that. It's a cohesive environment. We're meant to work together.
It's funny that you mentioned the Mediterranean and the current because just yesterday, I don't know if you know Sam, like spirituality with Sam.
I
She's
know of her, yes.
Yeah, so she just posted yesterday like some fun insights of things will change because it's like to take a reprieve from the heavy. And she mentioned the currents of water changing direction. That's a thing.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
God, this is
Yeah.
like
And they don't know. The scientists, I was reading the scientific article about it. The scientists literally don't know what they don't know.
I
They're
don't know
they're
that
just
she even knew
basically like, I
that.
don't know.
Like I
Yeah.
don't I think she just was picking up on it. I don't know that she knew that specifically to like have
Yeah. No, I
oh,
mean it's
how.
she's correct. She's absolutely correct. Um, Going back to the Schumann real quick in these evolutions, right? I think it's important. So studies have shown, so there have been a lot of scientific studies behind the Schumann resonance. And there's actually a new study that was just released really recently that talked about this link between the human brainwave patterns of alpha and theta, which are naturally synchronized with those frequencies of the earth. So when the earth's frequency rises, it synchronizes with us as human beings in that range. The thing about those brainwave ranges is that's typically where meditation resides. So,
Mm-hmm.
not everyone is sensitive to that because meditation, for anyone who's ever tried it, we all know meditation is not something you can just drop into. It takes practice and you have to really put some work into it.
Mm-hmm.
So that brainwave pattern is not necessarily one that I would say is readily available at the drop of a hat to everyone. So when people ask me, well, how come my friend didn't feel this shift? Well, my answer is, well, your friend is not tuned in to that brainwave pattern that correlates with that shift.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are meditating, if you are taking care of yourself, if you are more attuned to your own frequency, you're going to be more affected by that frequency.
Well, it was interesting because at that same June 1st, 2nd, 3rd, that beginning of the month, I was aware of it. I was feeling it and all of that. And then I was driving across two towns to get my son's prom suit, and everyone was driving like crazy. Everyone, the level of anger on the road. I mean, I live in northern New Jersey, we're not far from New York
Right.
City. So there's always a level of aggression here, but it was up a huge amount of notches. It was just crazy. And I was just like, it's because everyone's lost their shit because of the earth energy, it's like they may not be so conscious, but they're being affected by it. So it's like,
Right.
so that's something else that like
Yes.
to bring awareness to, that even if you're not tuned in, it still kind of affects you.
Yeah, absolutely. It will
Yeah.
affect them. They just don't know why.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
typically what it is. It also affects pets. It affects kids.
Mm-hmm.
It will absolutely impact them. And I think one of my favorite things about knowing this is I don't feel so at a loss when I'm experiencing a hard day. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it gives me a sense of grounding to know, okay, well, yes, some of this is my fault because I'm acting like a jerk, but maybe I'm acting like a jerk because my brainwave patterns are scrambled because the earth is getting all of this energy, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, People ask me all the time, well, what's the most helpful thing I can do when that's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Quite frankly, it's different for everybody. You have to figure out what works for you. For me, what works for me is I will intentionally go ground when that's happening because back in,
I figured you would suggest like, oh,
yeah,
maybe go earth, go do some earthing, go do some ground.
yeah. And earthing has a lot, grounding, earthing has a lot of science behind it. I
It
mean, back in the
does.
day when we were cavemen, we walked around with no shoes on and we're grounding all day long.
I
The
know.
earth is a different charge than our physical body, ionically speaking. So when you put your bare feet on the ground or you hug a tree, you are quite literally exchanging your ions with that piece of nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now we have rubber soles on the bottom of our feet. We never touch the ground. If you are feeling energized or like you have too much energy in your body, if you go outside and put
Mhm.
your feet on the ground, you open that channel of ion exchange and it will calm your energy down. It will help distribute it through your system and it will calm it down. It's natural, it's free. Go
I always
outside.
tell people that it's free. It's free.
It's
You could just
free.
go lay on the grass and watch the leaves blow in the wind, watch the clouds go by, connect
Take
to
a
earth
deep
energy,
breath.
ask the energy, ask the earth to take your excess energy. And like, it's not going to burden earth. It's not going to burden, it's not going
No,
to burden the tree. Like,
right.
so yeah. And it's free. It's
And
available.
it's free. And
And
if it's snowing and you can't do that, take a bath.
right.
Water is a conductor. Take a bath, take a bath, take a shower, do something.
Throw some
Put some
Epsom salt.
eucalyptus.
Yeah.
Yeah, Epsom salt. Put some eucalyptus in your shower. Steam, breathe the steam. There are ways around it. You have to figure out what works for you, though. Some people just feel like grounding doesn't work for them. I don't know how, but they feel that way, and that's fine. But find what does work for you.
Yeah.
You have to figure it out. Don't wait for someone to explain to you what you need to do.
I know. I know. Go get Reiki would be, what I would say too, because
Right.
that
Reiki
can
is the
help.
one that I recommend quite a bit, actually.
Have you heard of
Um,
the harmonic egg?
I have heard of the harmonic
Yeah.
egg. I've never
It's
done it myself, but I have heard of it.
it's pretty cool. I did it a few times. So like that would be like a neutral way. So you don't have to worry about even dealing with a healer. You could just go sit in this, sacred
Yep.
geometry, sound and light box.
Yeah.
It's egg shaped, but it's
Yeah.
it's really very neat. And I'm sure there's one not far from you because they're kind of
Yeah. In
around.
Chicago, I'm sure. I'm sure there's some
Yeah.
in Chicago. My friend, actually, I know there is because my friend used to go to one and she used to tell me about it. So I know for sure. It's probably not close to me. Where I live is I live at on the left side of Wisconsin. I'm like right at the border. So
Mhm.
Chicago is where I tell people I live. It's an hour and a half away, but it's the closest big city. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure there's one around me though, but that's a great idea. And I tell people too, if that's not something you have access to, just put on some headphones and turn on some frequencies.
Yeah.
Turn on something, do something, help yourself. Don't
Yeah.
throw yourself on the floor and say, "Oh my God, I can't handle it." Yes, you can. Get up, dust yourself off, and figure out what you need to do. You know?
And they can even just get distance healing too, and that can work as well with Reiki and with a
Yes.
harmonic egg and with other modalities too, I'm sure. But like, yeah, there's so many when I work on people, I see, the energy around them and I feel like I'm pulling off like stuffing or caked mud or whatever. I get like all types of images like that as because everyone's so packed full of excess energies, whether it's
Yeah.
their own drama in their life or whatever. But yeah, just get some energy hygiene happening,
Do
get some
something
ground.
new.
Yeah.
Change momentum direction. Do something different. Get your mind off of it. Refocus.
Did you have like with the meditation that opened you up to all the frequencies, did it feel like a spiritual awakening in a sense? Do you
That
like
was definitely a spiritual awakening.
because like
A
did you
hundred
feel
percent.
like a different like did you not believe you said you weren't raised in religion or
I
something?
wasn't really raised particularly religious. My parents were not religious. I had a grandfather who was a preacher, but I mean, I didn't live with him,
Right.
so I wasn't there. I tried several different religions as a young person. The most recent one I tried before I kind of decided it wasn't for me was the Baha'i religion, which is actually quite a very beautiful religion. And I did actually enjoy it. I learned a lot from there. I just don't like the structure of
Right.
religion.
No,
I
yeah, it's all
I have
man-made.
nothing against it, have nothing against it. And I think churches can give you a sense of community when you feel lost and can give you some guidance. I just, for me, I don't like the feeling of having to think only one way is correct. And that just doesn't
Just
resonate
it
with
goes
me.
against, yeah, you're not gonna tell me what to do.
Right. It's not that. It's just that I'm such a curious person that I want to investigate it myself. I'm a researcher at heart. I'm a teacher. I want to learn
Mhm.
why it happens, not just because you told me it happened.
But you
And
got to
that's
like,
what's led me to so much of the stuff I've learned.
well, yeah, because it's experiential and it's like firsthand. But like, I'm curious if you, in the frequencies, like you said, you can discern the difference between an ascended master and an angel and stuff. Have you?
That came over time. That
Yeah,
was just through trial and error. I
yeah.
started with Reiki, right? So for me, um, excuse me, because I am scientific in nature, I thought, well, what's the most scientific way I can start to explore this? And I think I Googled it and it said, try Reiki. So I'm like, all right. So I started learning about Reiki. I went and got certified Reiki level 1, 2, and 3. and learned how to do it on myself. And because I could feel the difference in myself, I thought, aha, there's something to this. Well, now that I can feel the difference in myself, let me see what it feels like when I do it on someone else. This led to my friend Heather and I opening a storefront where we would do Reiki practices with people. And I started to notice that when I was doing Reiki on someone, I would hear these different tones and pitches, and I would see images. And for a long time, I'd say a good 6 months, I completely ignored them. I totally dismissed it as my mind being busy. And then I had a client at some point who came a lot, and she sat up and she said, "Hey, did you get anything from me on that? Like from my guides or whatever?" And I was like, "I don't know. Well, I was seeing pictures. I saw this." And the look on her face as I was describing what I was seeing, I was like, "Oh, I'm on to something." All the color drained out of her face. And she's like, "Hold on a minute, because that's what I was asking you about, is
Mhm.
exactly what you're telling me. You need to start telling people this." And I was like, "What are you talking?" She's like, "No, no, no, you need to tell her." So I was resistant to it at first because I thought it was all in my imagination.
Right.
When I started to share it with people, it got 10 times stronger, 10 times more clear. And I started to notice the sounds changing.
Right.
And it was only through trial and error of I'd hear a pitch and I would ask the person, "Do you have a past loved one that might be with you?" And they say, "No, not really." "Okay, well, that pitch is higher than the other one who did. So maybe this isn't the same." And just a combination of what my actual guides tell me when I go into meditation or any dreams I have that come to me. It's like a conglomeration of a lot of information gathering. It's not from one little source. It's from all the sources, kind of one of those things.
That's so wild. And that's all in the last couple of years too. So that's pretty,
Yeah,
pretty.
this has all happened over the last 5 years. January 2020 was my awakening. COVID was my awakening experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's only been 5 years. Looking back from hindsight, it almost feels unbelievable that it's only been 5 years, because my life today is a complete 180 from my life 5 years ago. My goals in life are different. The way I live my life is different, even down to the food I eat
Hmm.
is different. The way I dress is different. I mean, everything is complete. I People who knew me
Yeah.
when I worked at the university, if they see me now and haven't seen me since then, almost hands down, they recognize me, but they don't recognize me. They always have that look on their face, like, "I know you from somewhere," like one of those things.
Yeah.
Granted, they haven't seen me in 5 years, but in the last 5 years, I stopped coloring my hair. Typically, I don't wear makeup. I have makeup on today because I had an appointment somewhere. I started dressing the way I want to dress. I started eating. I became a vegetarian. I gave up any alcohol. I did all these things, and not because I was trying to make anybody else happy, but
Right.
I started to notice that physically my body felt better when
Hmm.
I didn't eat red meat. So I cut it
Hmm.
out.
Right.
And then I noticed my body physically felt better when I didn't eat any chicken. So I cut it out. And it has
Yeah.
nothing to do with, I mean, I love baby animals, but I'm not trying to save them. I'm just saying I feel better. And I
Right.
think that's where people get caught up in making these changes, is they get too worried about what their friend is going to say or what their partner is going to say when they start making these changes, that they hold themselves back from it and they live in discomfort
Hmm.
rather than go through the small discomfort of make the change, feel better on the other side.
Right. Right.
And realistically, we kind of talked about this a little bit. I have a husband who is not at all spiritual. He is a construction worker. He is very pragmatic. He is a history major, he's a philosophy major, but he is not interested in
Hmm.
anything spiritual.
Right.
Yet we coexist just fine because I don't try to push it on him.
Right.
But I told him, "You have to give me the room to make changes in myself."
Yeah.
And he said, "Okay, as long as they don't affect me, I don't care." I'm like, "Fine." So I've gradually made these changes. And I will tell you what, this very week, he told me, "I think I'm going to stop eating red meat." And girl, I almost fell out of my chair, because this is a man who had to have red meat every dinner on his plate. He needed a red meat and a potato of some kind and a
Hmm.
bread. Like, he was all American male meal. And for
Yeah.
him to say, "I think I might stop eating red meat," just like, I was speechless. I was like, "Oh, okay, okay, great, But
Yeah.
he had to come to that decision on his own, and that's fine. But he's been watching me
Hmm.
feel better, look better, act better.
Yeah.
Everything's been better. And so he can't argue. You can't argue with that. You cannot argue with that.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, Your job is not to change someone. Your job
Mhm.
is to change you. And the side effect of you changing you is other people want to change themselves. That's how it's supposed to work. It's like a ripple. You're not here to save anybody. You're here to fix yourself. Everybody else will take care of themselves, and you can be the inspiration for that. Just stop trying to force it down their throat.
Yeah, we learned that lesson through the hard way, me and my husband. Because when I first woke up, I would be emphatic and he would be emphatic in the other direction. And it was very difficult because we came
Yeah.
to that conclusion after a lot of duress. They're like, okay, you're just not gonna see it the way I see it, and I'm not gonna see it the way you see it. But we have all these other things in common, and we do love each other, and we got through it, and we're very happy. But it was
Yeah.
like, yeah, it was so stupid and ego driven to be like, you have to believe what I believe because I love
Yeah.
you and you're the most important person in my life. And it's like, it doesn't matter. He's on his own
Right.
journey.
Well, and unconsciously, I think a lot of the the resistance that comes up in a partner situation is unconsciously that partner feels, if you change, does that mean I'm wrong?
Yeah.
Right. It
Hmm.
makes them self reflect in a way that makes them uncomfortable. It makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And so they'll push against that change because then maybe they have to look at themselves.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily on the surface. I don't think it's necessarily something they think about, but it's something that every client I've ever worked with has had that issue, every single
Hmm.
one.
Yeah.
And so there's too many people with the same thing for it not to be something. And I think that's part of it. But what I try to remind my husband and other people is metaphysics isn't magic, it's science. It's just science without the right words. We don't know how to explain it yet. It doesn't mean we won't eventually be able to explain it. And our own science is currently catching up with
Yeah.
so many things that spiritualists have been saying forever, right?
Yeah.
Um, Especially one of my favorite new discoveries is this idea of quantum entanglement, because to me, this is what the key is for the idea of the higher self and the incarnation, why we have an incarnation, right? People ask that question. Why, if we live in a realm where everything is possible, why would we need to incarnate? And that's a really good question. And
Hmm.
for a long time, I didn't have an answer.
Right.
But through this discovery, something that occurred to me was, well, if you are living in a realm where there's no passage of time, right? Then there can be no change, because without time, there's no observance of change. That's how it works. In order to observe change, there has to be time. So, for your higher self to expand or learn something new, it has to incarnate into a realm where change is possible. But through quantum entanglement, you remain entangled with them. So everything you experience in real time, they also experience in real time. And therefore, you grow, they grow, your higher self grows through every experience, every choice, every contrast, every appreciation, every piece of joy. That higher self starts to grow. That's also how your higher self can communicate with you, is through that quantum entanglement.
Hmm.
And for me, that small discovery in our science unlocked massive understandings about metaphysics. And that's what I mean. It's not magic. It's just science that we have yet to find the words for.
Hmm.
And so many spiritual teachers, I think a lot of people get overwhelmed when they first awaken. They're like, well, which teacher do I follow? Who do I listen to? Does not matter. Spiritual teachers, I'm going to say 99% of spiritual teachers are all saying the
Same.
exact same thing. They are
Yeah.
just using different delivery systems. That's it.
Yep. I
And the
recognize that
reason
early
that is,
on. Yeah.
right. And the reason that is, as an educator, I know for sure everybody learns differently. So if
Hmm.
we had one teacher, it would speak to 10 people. So
Hmm.
we need different types of teachers to speak to different types of learners, and then those people become teachers themselves, and then those people becomes teachers themselves, and this is how knowledge grows exponentially. But it has to start somewhere. So don't get too tangled up in which teacher am I listening to, which teacher is right. If you find someone that you like their message and you're like, oh my gosh, I love this, dive in, do the rabbit hole until you reach a point where you naturally feel like, okay, maybe I've gotten everything from this. Maybe I'm done with this, then you
Hmm.
naturally move on. That doesn't mean that everything you learned from that teacher doesn't matter or isn't important. It means you're ready for what comes next. So open yourself up to some new teacher and then dive into that rabbit hole. You don't have to look at every teacher all the time. Pick one teacher, go
Hmm.
as far as you want with that teacher, then pick another teacher and allow it to naturally lead you somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, when I first had my like wake up time and I was reading all of the books, which of course there's no bottom, but Eckhart Tolle and Wayne Dyer and even like Gabby Bernstein, like they all have similar messaging, and I
Yeah.
remember recognizing that and being like, oh, because it's universal. Oh, what's the other Neil Donald Walsh, like he did the Conversations with God. But
Mhm.
like it was just like those all of those had the same thread. And that's when I realized the same thing too. It's just like what personality do you connect with, and that's really what it comes down to, like what
Exactly.
aging are you drawn to.
Right.
So
And for someone like me who was very scientifically natured, I tried to read Eckhart Tolle. Reading
mhm.
Eckhart Tolle for me is like trying to read spaghetti sauce. I don't understand what this man is saying because he's coming from a very esoteric perspective
Yeah,
and I'm a very grounded person.
right.
So for me, he didn't work for me. And that was really
Mhm.
frustrating.
Right,
But what I found is I found teachers that came at things from a mathematical, physical
like
side.
Joe Dispenza.
No, actually, his name so the teacher that opened things up the most for me was Ram Dass, right? But
Okay.
as far as going to understand about why manifestation works and frequency and that sort of stuff, Dr. Morehouse, his name is Dr. David Morehouse.
Okay.
He designed and ran the remote viewing program for the CIA department. And he
Okay.
said, every single person can do this. It is not a special skill, it is a learned skill. And that got
Mhm.
my attention. So I picked up his book. And as you can see, it's heavily dog eared and bookmarked
Mhm.
because the whole first half of his book, he's using science to explain why this works. He
Yeah.
talks about the principles of resonance. He talks about quantum mechanics. He talks about things I completely understand that I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. Because I had been listening to Abraham and I love Abraham Hicks. I absolutely do. But I had been listening to her say over and over, just you have to focus. You have to focus. And for someone like me, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. How am
Right.
I supposed to focus on something that feels better when I'm stuck somewhere that feels terrible? So I
Mhm.
didn't understand. I couldn't make that connection. When he explained it in the terms of resonance, I was like, oh, okay, now I get it, you know? So
Awesome.
same idea,
Mhm.
different
Mhm.
delivery system. So don't I one of the pieces of advice I give to people is don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Dive in. But if you don't feel resonance with that teacher, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. It doesn't mean the teacher's wrong. It just means you are not in resonance with them. And that doesn't mean they are better or worse. It just means different. That's it. It's just different. People have to stop comparing themselves. Oh, you're more ahead than me. Oh, you're this. Maybe I don't feel this way because you're more aligned than I am. No, stop it. You are individual. It
Right.
doesn't matter. Don't compare
Yeah.
yourself to me or anyone else. You should only ever compare yourself to earlier versions of you. If you are
Mhm.
feeling better than you did, that's a win. If you are feeling more aligned than you did, that's a win. It doesn't matter where anybody else is.
Right. I love that. That's such a good reminder. And so if people if they haven't already started to follow you or know who you are, you can be found at Consciously Erin on
Yes, all
TikTok,
my social
YouTube.
media platforms have the same handle. It's at Consciously Erin.
Mhm.
I do have a website, which is consciouslyerin.com, and I have a really active Patreon community. I would encourage people to go to my Patreon channel first because that's where everything is. You can link to that through my website, or you can just go to Patreon and look up Consciously Erin. Patreon is where I house all of my written material.
Mhm.
Um, I also do a Monday through Friday, you get a written version of the Schumann report on there. You also get a weekly article connecting current science discoveries and spirituality. My podcast that I have called Between Frequencies is linked on there. I also have that podcast is on Apple, Spotify, all the normal stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but that community is rapidly growing. There's almost 800 members in that community currently, and it's a great place to connect with people who are just like you, people who have questions, people who want to explore things. We are open minded, we are loving and welcoming, and we want you there. So please, please stop by and check that out. That's on my Patreon channel, but you can get to that through my website, which is consciouslyerin.com.
And if people work with you one on one, like what do sessions like that look like?
Yeah. So a one on one session with me is not what people typically expect. I am what's called a frequency modulator. That's how I've labeled myself. And what that means is I work best through conversation. I'm sure you've noticed during this conversation, I'll get a thread of something you're talking about and I'll start pulling on it and pulling on it and pulling on it. That's how that works when we're in a session. So you want to come to the session with questions, not questions like, is so and so going to ever call me back? We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why you feel it's necessary to worry about if they're going to call you back. We're going to talk about why you might be scared to take the leap and go to the next step, why you have this trauma or this unresolved hurt that keeps coming up over and over again. I want to give you answers to help you continue your own work. I'm not going to wave a magic wand and solve your problems. And I think that's a misunderstanding people have. I do have tarot cards that I will use if you want me to, but most often it is so much more clear just through the conversation. And those sessions come in both 30 and 50-minute sessions, and they're only available through my website.
Mm-hmm.
So for all the people on social media, I am not messaging you. There are hundreds of scam accounts that steal my videos and my pictures, and then they message people and ask if they want a reading.
I
It
hate
is
that.
not me.
Yeah.
No reputable reader will ever do that. I almost 100% guarantee that if you get a message like that, it is a scam account. So please be mindful of that. Tarot readers, energetic workers are extremely valuable. Don't let this ruin your opinion of them because scammers are scamming. You know what I mean?
I know it's the worst. And before we go, I had the question about the graphs that you use for the Schumann resonance because
Yeah.
more than one, right? There's like the Russian and the Italian or something.
Yeah, so they measure different things. So the Russian graph measures ELF, which is called extremely low frequency. The Italian graph measures ULF, ultra low frequency. Like, first of all, can we just give an applause to the names? Like, let's just keep it simple, right? Extremely low and ultra low frequencies. So they're different frequencies. For me, when I'm looking at the Italian chart, if there is a lot of red on the Italian chart, that is more earth based energy and is associated with release from our
Mhm.
systems.
Mhm.
We see that red get very active around times of earthquakes, volcano eruptions, things that happen geologically. So that is a release of energy for us.
Mhm.
When I'm looking at the Russian graph, the big white energy is typically coming from lack of a better term, space or air or whatever you want to call it, the ether. And so it's coming more energetically for incoming energies. And sometimes they come at the same time, and that's really, really painful sometimes. And sometimes there go days with nothing. So it's
And
unpredictable.
you recognize like the patterns of the interpretation of the images because I remember seeing ones that look like angel wings like a few weeks ago or something. Like,
Right.
is that
So
like a an analysis that you have now that when you see that you know
I
what?
do.
Yeah.
I do. Well, I recognize patterns.
Yeah.
So I've seen that angel wing pattern a few times. And I
Mhm.
kind of brought that up just because I wanted to put it in my own memory. I don't have enough data on it to tell you specifically if there's a correlation.
Mhm.
But a couple times it's happened. And so far, what I've noticed, if it's happened more than twice, then usually there's something to it. I
Mhm.
just don't have a good explanation. And there's a lot of things on the graph like that that have happened that have only happened once or twice. So I don't have a clear, like, this is exactly what it is. And when that happens, I will always tell people when I'm interpreting it, this is my personal interpretation based on my
Yeah.
meditations. Don't get tangled up in this if this doesn't feel right to you, because I
Yeah.
don't have anything other than what I'm receiving to back that up, you know?
And then the pine trees, like that look like a whole bunch of trees in the one too. Is that like a thing? I don't,
Uh,
it wasn't you, it was somebody else I followed, but they're like the trees are back and it looked like almost like green and like little.
yeah, I don't know anything about pine trees. That's not part of anything I look at. I will
Well,
tell
I
you
know because it
there's
just looked like a series of just like, green little pointy things. So I don't
I
know
mean, I don't know how much time you have left, but the
how
thing
much.
people ask me about the most are timeline jumps. That's
Oh,
the
yeah, oh yeah,
biggest thing.
the black strips,
The
right?
black strip. So we have to remember that there are multiple collectives, and you also have your own individual timeline. When I am looking at the graph and I say there has been a timeline jump, this is reflective of the awakened collective because this is what I am tuned into, right? That doesn't mean that if we have a timeline jump through the awakened collective, that those on the unawakened collective don't also have one. I'm just not tuned to that. So I don't know what it's doing for them. I only
Mhm.
know what it's doing for us. The timelines between the awakened and unawakened collective have for years been getting further and further apart. If anyone who listens to Bashar will know, he's been saying this for 30 years. They're getting further and further apart, but it's like glass walls in between. You can still see what's going on over there. And for anyone who tells me that's not possible, well, think about this. If you have a friend that lives in another country and you call them up and ask them about the party in your neighborhood, they're going to have no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
because they are in a completely different focused environment than you are, a different timeline, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm talking about on there. As individuals, we shift timelines hundreds of times per day. It's like a movie projector. If you think of a film strip, right? Aging myself, but you think of a film strip, think of a room full of film strips, and you have a projector. Wherever you are pointing that projector through whichever film strip is what you're going to see on the wall. But
Mm-hmm.
depending on where your focus is going to change the picture on the wall. So you shift hundreds of times a day. So that's not, I'm not talking about you personally shifting. I'm talking about big collective shifts that are the result of momentum and focus all moving in one direction as awakened collective. So that's the easiest way I can explain that
Mm-hmm.
information.
Yeah, that's I know because that's like a lot to
It is a lot.
right.
And there's a lot of layers to it, but that's the easiest way. But and the most common question I get is what do you mean by a timeline shift? Nothing's changed in my reality. When we
Right.
have a collective timeline shift, there is not going to be a snap and the lights turn off and we're somewhere different. That is not how this works. These
Right.
are subtle changes in your environment. What most people tend to notice after these timeline shifts are new Mandela effects
Mm-hmm.
or personal Mandela effects. I've had things, doubles of things show up in my house that I thought I lost, and suddenly I have two of them.
Right.
Did I buy another one or did I find two? Like, or conversations. I'll have someone come up to me, hey, remember when we talked about blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, nope, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
or stuff like that. Or like I will suddenly become aware that some celebrities died and people are like, oh, they died 5 years ago. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That sort of things. It is very, very subtle, but if you know how to see it, you will absolutely see it.
I know. Me and my husband had that experience where we saw a building under construction, and then the next time we were there, there was like no evidence of it at all.
Right.
And he's like, "Don't bring that up." We
Right.
won't
But
think
what
about it.
happens
Yeah.
for most people in the unawakened collective, they are so consumed by their own lives that they are not present in the moment. So they
Mhm.
miss those things.
Yeah.
The reason the awakened collective tends to be more attuned to that is because the awakened collective tends to be more present minded. So you
Hmm.
are seeing things in present tense and not stuck in your future worrying about everything.
Yeah. That's so awesome. Thank you so much for talking and sharing all these things with me.
Absolutely.
And
It's been a
everybody else.
wonderful conversation. I've
Yeah, it's been a
absolutely
good
enjoyed
time.
it.
I know. I'm like, oh my God, I have an appointment at 2. I gotta get going. But it was nice, sharing this with everybody, and everyone knows where to find you. So thank you, thank you. I really appreciate
Yeah, of course. And if you ever want to go deeper into something like frequency or manifestation, you let me know and we will talk about it. I'm excited.
it. Yeah, man. Bane our brains. I was gonna say instead of bend our brains.
Yes, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you, thank you.